Wait. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another brand new episode of Slay It, where we dare to dream big. So, in my last episode, I interviewed Mahir, Dreama, and Kanan on the college application process. And today I'm going to continue to do that. So, without further ado, let's get started. So, let's start off with a question about one thing that all high schoolers are probably preparing for like, yeah, they're probably very anxious and they're probably preparing for this a lot. Test scores and tests. And I feel like, yeah, there's a lot of colleges that do take test scores into account. Some don't, some partially do, some like really do. But I just want to ask you guys, how big a role did test scores play in your college application, and which tests did you take? So this time, let's start with Kanan. Let's start off with you, Kanan. Kanan, let's start off with you.
Wait, can you hear me now?
Yeah. Sorry about
Hello?
that. Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so how big of a role? Honestly, like it wasn't really that important, I don't think. Like, okay, I took the ACT, I got a 36, but when we applied to college, it was right during that time where all the colleges were going like test optional or like some of like I didn't think maybe MIT didn't even take it. I don't even remember. So during our application cycle, it wasn't as serious. But for like my safety and target schools, like Texas A&M, I applied to them. And yeah, for a lot of the state schools, they really care about your test scores, and especially like your SAT, ACT, and the PSAT. Because I took the PSAT, got like a 1460 or something. It was above the cutoff for Louisiana for national merit. And once you get national merit, you can get so many scholarships at so many different state schools. And this isn't necessarily info for Ivies, but you have to keep in mind all the other good colleges as well, because there's so many good colleges out there.
Yeah, I think that was definitely a pretty good point that you just made there because yeah, it varies from school to school. Cause like even my brother was telling me he got a 35 on the ACT, but unfortunately his school was test blind, so they didn't really, unfortunately, they didn't really like take the score into account. But yeah, I guess it just varies from school to school at times. But Mahir, did your school take your test scores into account? Like, what was your situation?
Yeah, I took the ACT, SAT, and PSAT. I got a 36 on the ACT as well. Um, I don't know because I guess it showed like, okay, he's able to do well on tests. Um, but again, like, me and Kanan applied the same year, and when Dream applied the year after, we were all test option. Like the schools were technically test optional, so standardized tests were a lot less valued, I guess. But even then, we don't know how valued they were because they could have been. Um, I think it just showed like I think it just confirmed that my grades were legit, I guess. But even then, like ACT, SAT, it's about how well you take that specific test and not, I wouldn't say it's like necessarily a good measure for other things. Um, yeah, but I do want to add on to the state school thing, like Alabama, schools like that will give so much money. LSU, like Mississippi, big state schools will give so much money if you do well on standardized tests. So I think they are important um to do well on. And the PSAT, a lot of schools have scholarships, like Tulane, um they give like an extra 2,500 a year, I think, on top of the national merit money. So I think standardized test was definitely important for me for like one kind of just like getting it out of the way for the Ivies. I think it can be a point of concern, like if you do have a lower test score, but you have a strong portfolio otherwise, I think it can be a sense of worry for yourself. It's like, do I want to work on improving this or do I want to focus on other things? But I think working on the test score aspect can help you in with other schools as well. So again, like just to recap, I don't really know. It's really hard to tell how important my test scores were, but I think you should try to do well on them, especially now that schools are back to test mandatory, and also because you can get so much scholarship money out of them.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So it definitely seems like this whole national merit thing is very, very important when it comes to applying for colleges and yeah, when it comes to applying for colleges and all that jazz. So Dreama, what do you think? So would you say that national merit is like a whole lot more important than test scores? Like will they, if you are national merit semifinalist or finalist, would that be like a much bigger deal than like, I don't know, getting a perfect score on like the ACT and the SAT? Like what do you think? What's your perspective on this?
Okay, I think it's all really like, I think it's relative. That's like a hard question to just ask because I don't really know the answer to that. I think um I was national merit semifinalist. I also had like I took ACT in freshman year and then I was like, oh, so I think like for ACT and SAT, I think you need to be in a certain range. I think it's like 33 and above for the Ivies. I was test option, like my year was test optional. So I do know a lot of people in my year at Harvard that just didn't have a good SAT or ACT score and then applied test optional tests like and they didn't submit their scores and they still got in, but it was like not in the range that like people talk about. I think it's like what 33 to 36 or something. Um and I know and same my brother's a year younger, his year was also test optional, but I do know certain schools are not test optional anymore. I know Harvard is not test optional anymore. So I do think it does play into an effect and I think you need to have like I think you definitely need to have an ACT score in that range. I think like a 33 and above or whatever. But I think you can be fine. Like if it's not, I think it is more about like the holistic approach. Again, like how you look as an applicant as a whole. Um, does like a perfect on the ACT seem more important or national merit semifinalist? That like I don't know. Like I really can't answer that. I do say like if you have both, like you're a better applicant. You are obviously your test scores can back up your grades that you have in school. Like you are a strong applicant. However, I think you don't need to have a perfect ACT score. I also think you don't need absolutely need to be national merit semifinalist. But that doesn't mean oh like just slack off and like not even try. I think it does make you a strong applicant. I do think colleges do look at that and they do see, especially like in a state like Louisiana, I know the cutoff is a lot. It's not as high as in other states, right? So if the cutoff is like a lot lower, I think you should like try to make that cutoff because it's more doable in Louisiana. Um, but like I know in other states, like I know in Massachusetts, the cutoff is like crazy high. And so not everyone is national merit semifinalist. ACT is more well-rounded. It's a test that like everyone in the country takes, but also the cutoffs for the ACT depends on your state. So again, it's like all really relative. Like the curve that they have on the ACT, I know is like dependent on the other people that took it in your state. Maybe if Mahir and Kanan want to talk a little more about that, but yeah, I guess that's like my views on it.
Yeah, okay, that's very interesting. Yeah, I definitely agree with it that there's definitely like if you don't do well on the tests, it's like not the end of the world, but it's good if you do well on a test. Like it's always a good addition to your application. One thing I'm noticing is that you guys keep talking about this holistic approach thing. Like what is that? Can one of you tell me what exactly that is?
I mean, I
Yeah,
guess I can
yeah.
go, like,
No, you go. You can go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, because I think I brought it out of nowhere. Yeah, basically, um, like I'm Turkish, right? In Turkey, they just care about what you got on the test that you take after like high school is over. And if you do well, if you do bad on that one day, you're cooked, or like you have to wait a whole another year, retake the test, all that type of stuff. In America, you have to apply with like your extracurriculars, your tests, your GPA, and you're telling a story on what kind of a student you are, what kind of a person you are, and how you will fit into the college's campus. Because the college isn't just looking for people that, you know, got a 30 to 36 on the ACT, was like USACO platinum, like went to the Olympiads, whatever. They want to build a community, and by telling your story through your extracurriculars, your GPA, and your essays, you let them know what kind of a person you are. And based on this person that you show yourself as, the college decides, okay, we need someone like Mahir, like Dreama, or no, we don't need someone like them. At least that was like the way I understood it. But I think it's a very loaded, meaningful word. So I won't, yeah.
Yeah, I can add to that as well. I mean, yeah, Kanan said it perfectly. I would just say like I think it's also just for a way to colleges to kind of, I mean, admissions in America is very subjective, and so holistic admissions is a way for them to just kind of get behind that term. Like Kanan said, it's very loaded and no one really knows what it actually really stands for. It just allows admission officers to kind of pick and choose the classes they please. And that's the thing when admissions officers are like doing their job in January or whatever, they're looking to create a class of about 2,000, like 2,000 people or less than that. And so like Kanan said, they're gonna look at the applicant and like see if they want to add them based on like the peers in the class. Like if who they are would be like a positive addition, and if they need that person in their class, then that's who they will want. And that's where the whole process of holistic admissions like comes from. Like, you know, who do you want leading a certain like club at your school? You want people who are very hardworking in their academics and stuff. And all of that together helps create a class that admissions officers want. And so that's really the whole idea behind holistic admissions, as opposed to just, you know, getting perfect grades and perfect test scores, because then like you might not have a very well-rounded class of people with different interests and ideas.
Yeah, that's actually, I think this whole holistic thing is a very good idea, because you don't just want a whole class full of big brains, but it's not very like, it's not a very varied class where everyone has their own interests, everyone has their own personalities. Because if you don't have a class like that, then you won't really have a lot of variety in your school and your college, wherever you attend. And so yeah, I definitely think that having that variety is very important. And so I like this whole holistic approach thing. Thanks for educating me on that. But anywho, on to the next question. So now we move to community service. So every student has their own way of serving their community. So what community service did you do in high school that you think the colleges that you applied to definitely valued the most? I think let's Kanan, you can start, Kanan.
Yeah, so I really didn't do as much community service as I maybe should have. Like the main goal in colleges caring about community service is not about, oh, you did like 600 hours. It's more about giving back to the community, being a member of the community, being a valuable member of the community. So I maybe had like 60, 70 hours of volunteering, but I mean, mostly I was just like maybe tutoring students or like helping out in the Turkish community, like organizing events and stuff. Which like I didn't get like hours for most of that. But some essays, like I applied through QuestBridge, and QuestBridge asks like specifically about community service. Like you have to write like a 500 word essay about your role in your community, or like what community do you value the most. So I guess like at the very least, giving back to your community is also a way to have better essays and have a better story to tell.
Yeah, I feel like with community service, it's definitely very similar to like extracurriculars. For the fact that like you should actually be doing the community service because you want to give back to the community, because you want to make your community a better place to live, a better place to be in. You shouldn't just be doing it for the sake of just doing the community service to once again please the colleges. And yeah, I definitely think that's very important. But Mahir, what kind of community service would you say is better? Would you say like hands-on community service where you're, I don't know, going scuba diving to like pick trash in the ocean? Or would you say like indirect community service is better, where you're like, I don't know, donating money to help like help a cause for like, I don't know, homeless children or the environment and deforestation? Like what is your thought on that?
It's fun. And then like raising money for donating to good causes is great as well.
Wait, Mahir,
Ultimately,
I'm sorry, but you like cut off a little bit in the beginning. So is it possible for
oh,
you to like
okay, yeah,
restart a little? I'm sorry.
yeah, yeah. I would say both of those are very cool. Um, I think I don't think it's about hands-on versus indirect. I think again it's about like how important it is to you and how you convey that importance to college admissions officers. Like I think one of the worst examples of community service is like trying to make it your whole thing but barely putting any effort into it. Um, so like getting like 10 hours and then trying to make it seem like that's a big deal. Like getting 10 hours of community service is fine if that's not your thing, I think. But like then trying to make it like I'm just saying stuff. But like I think it just depends on how it tells your story together. And you want it to all connect together. I don't think community service for the sake of community service is a good thing, and college admissions officers will see right through that. If you're able to like really show how important what you did is, then they'll see it. I did like I think 400 hours. I volunteered at the zoo and the aquarium. And I had fun with that. And it's just what I liked. It's kind of out of the ballpark, but I was still able to connect that with other themes and stuff in my application. And I continued with it for a long time. I think that's another important thing that college admissions officers look for is longevity with your extracurriculars. A lot of people will just do a community service thing for like 2 months, just to get like, the 20 hours required for the year, and then move on with it. And again, that's okay, but then you don't want community service to be your main thing in your application. If you want community service to be a big deal, then you actually have to make it a big deal for yourself as well. Yeah.
So I guess it's a little bit like how much effort you are willing to put in. So it's like if you decide that community service is not your thing and you're going on to explore something else, you don't have to like rack your brain trying to like find all the community service things in this area. But I guess if you decide that community service is your thing and you want to do something significant to help the community, then you should definitely do that. It's all about following your passion, doing what you want to do, and yeah, it's basically just all about that. You shouldn't
Yeah, one
try.
more thing I will add is, yeah, community service is all about like impact. And so if you're able to show that impact either for how it impacted you significantly and other people, then that's great. That's what you want with community service. It's about impact.
Yeah, that's also a really important thing. Thanks for adding that. You also need to show like if you're doing some community service for like some minuscule little thing that nobody cares about, then it's like you're not doing any impact. You're not helping the community because nobody cares about it. You need to be doing something that like not it's like everyone's gonna notice, but it's making a difference in the community and it's making the community a better place. So that was a really good point that you added. But let's head over to you, Dreama. So, what kind of community service were you interested in when you were in high school? Like, what were you doing?
Okay, so I think Mahir made a point about this. Like, if you're doing community service, like, um, it has to like impact you or like show meaning. So that's like I did a lot of community service, and which is why I think it stood out on my application. It wasn't like my only thing, but I had like 2000 and like 500 hours or something like crazy because I loved it. It because like I started off volunteering like at the library, and then I like loved it. Like I'm a social butterfly and I love like working with people. And so I just loved meeting new people at like different places I volunteered. I volunteered at the library, like the hospital, the food bank. And I would just keep going because every time I would go, like at least the food bank and like the hospital, every time I would go, I'd be meeting new people. And every new person I met was giving me like a new perspective on life. And like I loved it and it impacted me in a very significant way. And so I think that like I didn't write much about it on my applications. I think it was like a supplement or two, but um I think colleges did see that like I wasn't just doing community service to like, get the hours and to like rack it up. It was purely like I kept doing it because it was making a difference in my life, and I would like to think that like my presence at those places was also making a difference to them, like at the hospital at least, like talking to patients. I feel like they just want someone to talk to because they're kind of alone sometimes. And I think that brightened their days up a little more, even at the library, like helping little kids and events and stuff. I think it would make them feel a little more better. And I think that approach is why I think it stood out on my application. But like I completely agree with what like Kanan and Mahir were saying. Like you should do community service, not just to do it if it's like like you want it to make an impact on like the projects that you're doing. So I didn't do any big projects, but I think or like raise money or anything. I simply just used what I like my resources in the local neighborhood and did what I could.
Okay. I've heard of numbers, but 2,500 is crazy. And you know what? It shows because if somebody is doing 2,500 hours of community service and like they don't really want to, then they really are like they're not okay. But it shows in your personality as well. It's like you anyone who does that many community service hours is like you can truly see that they love doing what they're doing because like what that's how everything in life should be. You should always love doing what you're doing, otherwise why are you doing that? And yeah, I definitely think that's a very important aspect with community service and with extracurriculars, with everything in life. In fact, you should always love doing whatever you do in life. So on to the next question. Um, so I bet that in your college applications, you definitely showed the colleges like a side of yourself or a personality trait about yourself. I bet like that showed in your college application. So what personality traits or values about yourself do you showcase in your college application that you think your college valued? So I think this time let's start off with Mahir. Let's start off with you, Mahir.
Um, I honestly don't know that well. I guess like curiosity, passion, but those are very vague things. The thing about personality traits is you have to like really back it up, and you can't really just say like I'm a curious individual. You have to show it. Um, I think I my personal essay was very imaginative. So I guess that's one thing colleges might have liked. Um, you know, the other basic ones, diligent, hardworking. I think personality traits is a little harder to measure in college essays and in your application. It's all about what you show. Um, yeah, I think there are a few colleges that ask like use a few words to describe yourself, and I don't think I applied to any of them because I didn't want to do that. Maybe I did, I don't even remember. But yeah, I think colleges are looking for positive attributes, of course, but all applicants will have those positive attributes. It's about how you like really show those attributes, I think.
I guess, yeah, it's very important. If you're like on your college application, you're like, I'm a bright mind. And they're like, okay, what are your test scores? And you're like, oh, it's like you need to have something to show for your for your personality traits. It's because you can't just the colleges won't like take what you're saying at face value. You need to be able to prove it. If like you say, if someone says you're extroverted and they're like, okay, show me. You're like, okay, well, I did this many things for this many people. And they're like, wow, okay, you're really extroverted. So I guess, yeah, it's definitely all about, I guess, proving yourself to the colleges almost because a lot of students are going to have these positive attributes, like what Mahir said. So it's, I guess, it's all about, I guess, trying to make yourself stand out in the crowd. So, Kanan, what do you have to say about Mahir said? Like, would you like to add on to anything, or like, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, I do agree that it's really difficult to just quantify like your whole application into just like a couple of words, I guess, like a couple of personality traits. But I guess like I tried to show that I was like a persistent person. Like and I showed that through like my essays and like obviously like I told them like I immigrated here in 8th grade, right? And I had to adjust to a whole new country and all of that stuff. So I think that was one thing that helped, was that maybe they were like, oh, like this guy can adapt to um like a new environment very well. So maybe that was like a positive thing. Um, Also, I had maybe 2 or 3 leadership positions, because I was trying to show that like I can hold leadership positions, I can be a leader, I guess. And I also tried to show like creativity, especially when they ask you questions like if you met one person, who would you want to meet, or like what's your favorite hobby or something. Like they want to show that they want to see that you're not just like a um like they want to see that you're actually like a well-rounded real person, not an NPC, right? So in situations like that, I tried to show that um I tried to show like a more creative side of myself.
Yeah, once again, yeah, that's definitely very important. Like, once again, going back to what Mahir said, every student is going to show these positive attributes about themselves. It's all about trying to make yourself stand out in the crowd, and it's not just about like I did this, so I'm special. It's like everybody else is going to have had some form of that. And it's all about, I guess, trying, yeah, once again, trying to make yourself stand out. But Dreamo, what would you say, what personality traits do you think you demonstrated in your college application?
I think like very similar to Kanan. My like biggest trait that I showed in case was perseverance. Like that was like a word I used too. That like no matter what like life threw at me, I was like going to keep working hard and like keep persevering through whatever obstacle that came my way, and I was going to overcome it no matter what. Um like so perseverance was a really big one in my like college essays, I would say. In my personal statement for sure, that's like the word I used. Another character trait, like I think so in like a lot of interviews for college, they ask you, oh, like what is the one thing that you want like to stand out in your application, or like Mahir said, what's like a few words you say to describe yourself? And I literally would say like vegetarian hot dog. Like that is what I say, to show that I have like this like very bubbly, um, positive mentality and that I'm very outgoing. So like that was a key trait that I showcased, that I was like very social and very outgoing, and like the vegetarian hot dog meant I'm vegetarian, so that's like where that came from. And like hot dog was like a reference that I used. I like dressed up as a hot dog on my birthday, and like I don't know, that just kind of speaks for like the type of person I am. So I would say that. Also, like, positivity was one that I was really like I really demonstrated by saying how, like, again, like, alongside with perseverance, the way I look at life is like in a very positive light. Instead of looking at all the negatives that you can choose to look at, I choose to look at the positives of a situation and try to make the most out of everything I can. So like those were like the really three big traits that, like, but those are traits that define me. I know not everyone has like the same traits, so I'm not saying like, oh, everyone go ahead and like say that you are like this and like you'll get into like the Ivies. I think it's definitely knowing about how you are yourself, and like those are three words I would describe myself, and I just demonstrated them through like my life. So I feel like that's the advice I would give. It's like know yourself and know, like, if you're gonna say a trait, like, know how you can back it up with something in your life that has happened, or like, I don't know, because anyone can say, oh, like perseverance, but you need to be able to show it how you are, like how that trait applies to you.
Yeah, I guess it's also about like, yeah, it's about you say you're like a certain personality trait, and you also need to be able to like show that in creative ways. Show something that like so say something about yourself that like you think will stand out and you think will like showcase something about yourself. Because I feel like every event in life and every action that you do is going to show some sort of thing about yourself, whether how like small it is or how large it is. It's going to show some particular aspect about yourself. And I feel like when you're applying for colleges and stuff, that definitely is put into perspective. So I feel like you just need to look inside yourself and see like, yeah, okay, I'm this, but in what experiences have I proved that I'm this? So I definitely think that's very important as well. And I agree with everything as you guys have been saying so far. But on to our next question. So in college life, you're going to learn a lot of things in the transition from high school life to college life. And what are some important things that you guys have learned from college life? And how have you developed as a result? So for this one, um, I think Kanan can go first. You can go first, Kanan.
Don't be lazy. It will catch up to you. Don't miss on your sleep. It will catch up to you. Everything can catch up to you. So you have to stay on top of your game. You have to stay motivated and be persistent. And another thing that I learned, you just have to, like, if you get stuck, you have to ask for help. Like college, the whole point of it is so you can have all these peers and like TAs and professors around you so that you can learn. And one of the best ways to learn is by asking a lot of questions. Um, and that also helps with like meeting new people, new friends, networking. So it's like a whole different ball game. But if you stay motivated and like stay on top of your game, then you should be fine.
Yeah, I feel like in college you're going to learn a lot of things throughout your experiences in like elementary school, middle school, high school, but in college it's really put into perspective. Like I don't know. Like, yeah, sure, I was late to class this one time, but don't worry. It's fine. Nothing bad will happen. But then in college, I guess when you are late to class, like a lot of the times, like Kanan said, it will catch up to you. So it's yeah, I guess it's about staying on top of things, being aware of yourself and your actions, and yeah, just make sure that you're not slipping up in anything. But Mahir, what about your some important things you've learned in college? Would you say that there was one moment where you learned something very important about yourself in college, or would you say that took like a little bit of time to learn that one thing about yourself in college? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I definitely think it took time. Like consistent things happening. I think some of them were definitely bigger than others that helped me see the bigger picture. Yeah, that's just how I would see it. And ultimately, like, you can never really pre-prepare for the transition to college. Like, you can be mindful of like the things we're saying, like go to office hours and like get sleep. It's very like don't skip class too much because it'll catch up to you at some point. Like, keep up with your classes, meet people, take advantage of every opportunity. Like, these are all important things, but you don't really, I guess, understand it until you have to go through things where you realize that you really need to do it. And this happens over time. I don't think there's really one like standout big moment, but I think it's a few bigger moments that kind of add on to each other.
Yeah, you know what? To be honest with you, that's kind of like what I expected because there's rarely moments in life where something happens and you just like have this big epiphany about yourself. It takes time to like for that to develop because you're never going to like become twice as better as you were overnight. Like sure, it does happen to like very few people, but it won't there's very low chance of it happening to you. So it's all about gradual development and you will learn important things about yourself in college, but you just gotta give it time, just gotta trust the process.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. I will also add on that colleges have a lot of resources and stuff. So like big resources, like big names and big people and stuff. So try to take advantage of that as well, because you only have 4 years to do that.
yeah, I agree with that. It's like you're not on you're not stranded on an island where you have no help. There's no like there's no like person that you can contact to like come and pick you up. It's like you have help. You have friends around you. You are not there just to suffer. You have people that can help you with your studies, help you with something that you may be going through. You're not there alone. So yeah, I definitely think that's a very important thing to know and realize when you're in college. But Dreama, let's go over to you. Did you have one big moment where you like found out something about yourself? Or was it like Mahir, very gradual as well?
Yeah, there was not like a big moment where I was like, oh yeah. Um, I will say, um, I'll like touch, I agree with like everything Mahir and Kanan said, but I'll like definitely go into more of the social aspect, which is I think a much bigger change than like academically. Even though academically is a really big change from high school to college, at least from Haynes to an Ivy, I think there was like a very big change. But socially, I think you're gonna make friends like within like I think orientation week and like the first few days, but those might not be the friends you end up with like at the end of the first semester or even the first year. And I think that's important to realize and be okay with that the first people you meet may not be your friends and may not be the ones like your lifelong friends throughout college and may not be the ones you click with. And it's okay that um you're not going to get along with everyone at the college, and like that's okay. Like I think a lot of people, especially at the Ivy Leagues, like I don't know, I feel like social aspect definitely gets pushed down, but it's also very important to understand and like get advice on, because I think I wish I did a little more rather than like the academics. Like I wish someone would have told me like, oh, like even like reaching out on DMs. I know like currently everyone, like if you get in, like immediately people find friends on Instagram and like you're DMing them all summer, right? But then maybe when you get on campus, you'll like hang out with them for like the first 10 minutes and you just don't vibe with them. Like those may not be your friends that you end up with, and I think that's like totally okay. So I think that's like my piece of advice on that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a thing because it's not like this is how it is and it will never change from there on. Change is a thing. It's like and you have to be it's like you have to be able to deal with it, especially in college where you're like once again, like Dreama said, you're gonna meet like a bunch of people in the beginning who you're just like, these are gonna be my lifelong friends. We're gonna hang out and have fun. And the next thing you know, you might not like vibe with them. You might not really like them. But that's okay because there's always going to be happy moments and sad moments down the road where good things are going to happen to you and bad things are going to happen to you, and you have to be at peace with that. And I definitely think that's a important thing to learn about in college when you're undergoing a lot of, character development, and you're realizing a lot of things about yourself. And yeah, I definitely think that's very important. But on to the final question of our very insightful interview. And this is a question that I ask to everybody that comes on the show. What advice would you give to anybody watching that might want to get into an Ivy League college? And I know for a fact that that's a whole lot of people. So, yeah, I think we can start off this time with Mahir. Let's start off with you, Mahir.
I think the biggest thing is just like it's really hard to you can't really replicate anything that anyone else does. You have to really like you can take inspiration, I think, and see what people did and kind of like look to different things you can do, but ultimately it's about like yourself. You need to see what you like, what you're passionate about, and how you can use that to like make big stride and have a large impact on yourself and on other people. I think that's what they're looking for. Telling a very strong story about yourself and really selling yourself in that way is very important. You need to have good grades. Now that test scores are back, I think you should have strong test scores. Extracurricular wise, you want to do things that are important to you and that like are cohesive in the sense that you can tie them together for yourself. I did a bunch of different things. I didn't have like one spike as they called it. But I was able to connect them. The story and the connecting different things together about yourself is very important. Each extracurricular you should, try to have a big impact, as much of an impact as you can. Being a leader in those spaces, and then like the essays are the chance to really tie everything together. So I think that's what really makes it all fit.
Yeah, those were actually some really, really solid points that you brought up there, especially the one about where you have your own path, because it's impossible to be the a clone of another person. You can't see someone and be like, I want to be just like them. It's like that's not possible. It's all about finding your own path, finding your own person. And as long as you're okay with that and you welcome that, you're going to go somewhere, because that's the first step. It's about finding what you want to do, who you want to be, what type of guy you want to be in society. I don't know. But it's all about just finding that in college and along the way. And I definitely think that's a vital part of the journey of life. And so let's go to Dreama. Let's go to Dreama. So what advice would you have for anybody watching?
I would say be authentic and work hard. And also like take advice, but like it's literally similar to what Mahir is saying. I would say definitely take advice from your peers and like people who've gone through the process. I think it definitely helped me, but don't try to copy them because ultimately you can't, and you should like be authentic, be yourself. But like when it comes to like test scores and stuff like that, and if they're willing to give advice and help you like navigate that process, 100% use it. Um, but ultimately, yes, be authentic, do the things that you really like and you can excel at, because I think that's what really matters. Because I honestly believe if you do an extracurricular or you do like something that you really enjoy doing, you're automatically gonna want to excel in it, and you're going to push yourself to be the best at it as you can be, and that is what colleges look at. And so I think be authentic, but then don't slack off, right? Like put in the hard work. If that's your dream and like you want to get into an Ivy and like that's your goal, you have to put in the hard work. I think hard work does pay off, but it doesn't come at an easy price. Uh, and I would just say like I think like the whole college application process is very like it's very strenuous and it's very stressful. I know it was for me, but it's not, if you don't get into Ivy, it's not the end all be all. Like it really is not. I think state school, like as long as you have the drive, you can honestly go to any college and make your dreams come true and like make change in the world. Like, I don't know, if you have the drive and the ambition to do it, Ivy League is not your only like path or your only like way to do it, right? So I think that needs to be definitely taken into consideration. I know you can get warped into like this mind like path of like, oh, I need to go to an Ivy, like that's the only way. I think like take that with a grain of salt. Really, like you can go to like if you don't get in, it's okay. Like you can go to another college or another school and like really excel. So that's like my advice.
Yeah, I definitely think that's very important, especially your taking advice. That's very important because let's say you're like, I don't know, that new guy in the office and you like don't really like, you're having a bit of trouble with the task. It's important that you know how to take advice from people and you know how to get help from people because it's going to help you so much along the way, because no one can be in completely independent and completely live on their own. There's always a little bit of help that they need along the way. And I feel like we have to welcome that, because if we don't welcome it, we're not going to succeed in life. Help is a part of everybody's life, and we have to be at peace with that. So, yeah, I definitely think that's a very important thing to learn in college as well, because you're going to need a lot of that in college as well. And Kanan, to top off this long-winded interview, what advice would you have for anybody out there as for how to get into a good college?
I mean, first off, listen to what Mahir and Dreama said. They kind of touched on most of the points that I wanted to touch on. But yeah, you just have to do the best that you can with the resources and the ability that you have. Like Dreama said, don't slack off, don't be lazy. But also you have to take care of yourself. And yeah, I think this actually might be a little controversial, but I think you need to do you need to have like a spike, like that can help. And what I mean by a spike is like in your respective major or your field, you should try to do more on that axis, or do more impressive stuff on that axis. And I think that can help you stand out a little bit more. And this isn't this isn't specifically Ivy League advice, but I would advise people to apply to liberal arts colleges as well. They get overlooked a lot because they're like very small colleges or whatnot, but there are some very quality liberal arts colleges that are basically on the levels of like the Ivies, and not as many people apply to them. So it's kind of like a cheaper way to get into an Ivy. But yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, that was some very good advice that you gave there. That whole thing with the spike, I mean, yeah, I do actually kind of agree with that, because if you're majoring in something in college for a reason. You didn't just naively choose something like one day like, that's what I'm going to do. You put a lot of thinking into that, and you need to have it like reflect in who you are, because you chose what you're going to major in and you need to stick to it. You can't just quit halfway along the way and be like, this is too hard, I'm gonna do something else. Because it's all about perseverance, hard work, courage, determination. These are like the these are like very important characteristics that you're going to need to like master when you go into college, because they're going to help you so much along the way, and they are probably going to be one of the things that you need the most when you're in college, because there's going to be a lot of things that are going to be really hard tasks, and sometimes you may just not want to do it. But if you put in the perseverance, you put in the hard work, it will pay off in the end. And I definitely think that's a very important thing. But unfortunately, the end of our interview has come. So I want to thank everybody for watching, and I want to thank our 3 amazing panelists. They gave some really good advice on the college application process and how to get into colleges as well. And Dreama, Kanan, and Mahir all go to, they were all Haynes Academy alumni, is a school in humble Metairie, Louisiana. And you see how they've turned out. And yeah, I just think that the most exciting of events can come from the most, I guess, some of the most unlikeliest of places. So I definitely, this definitely reflects it here. And these 3, they're amazing people. They put in so much hard work to get to where they are today. I think, I don't know, I've only talked to one person at a time who goes to like an Ivy League college. Today, I've had the opportunity to break that record because I've talked to 3 people at the same time. So thank you for helping me break that record, and thank you for coming on the show today. And also thank you to my brother Advait, who connected me with these amazing people. He's an amazing person. He taught me a lot about this whole college stuff as well to prepare for this interview. So Advait, if you're watching this, thank you. And I want to conclude by saying something to the viewers, something that Dreama said earlier in the interview. Sure, you should strive for success. You should strive to get in those Ivy League colleges, strive to get in those top colleges, do your best, try your best. But in the end, it's not the end of the world if you don't get into a top college. Because sometimes it's not about the college that you go to, but it's about working with the knowledge that you got from the college that you did go to and using it in the real world to make the world a better place. But you know what else will make the world a better place? Subscribing to this channel, liking this video, and the little bell icon. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. And remember, dare to dream big.